Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Student Leadership Series, Week 5 panel. I'm going to give all attendees about 2 minutes to log in, and we'll get started. We have some great panelists here with us today on our final advice panel. You've been through a long 5 weeks of learning about leadership, networking, communicating, meeting new, hopefully meeting new mentors, and working towards a prize package. Before we get started, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping rules. If you do need closed captioning, be sure to turn it on your screen at the bottom. You should see subtitles or closed caption. Also, friendly reminder, since it is the last week, you do want to make sure that you complete all of your workshop activities, questionnaires, surveys, and panel videos by tomorrow, Friday, December 11th at 11 p.m. So you have all day till 11 p.m. to finish and catch up and submit in your point codes. We will review your submissions throughout the weekend, and we will have the announcement of the winners. I want to say about in the middle of the week. We'll be sure to notify your instructors and your district. So let's get started. We'll start off with an introduction from each of our panelists, starting with Cynthia Varnell.
All right, I unmuted myself. That's always the hardest part to do it quickly. So as Aria said, my name's Cynthia Varnell, and I work for a company called Guest of Some Brothers Incorporated. My title is kind of fluid, but I'm the HR manager, marketing manager, admin. So really everything that it takes to run the business. And what we do is we fix cars. So we are a full service mechanical shop and auto body shop. And then we also have a nonprofit that offers training for youth if you want to get in the automotive industry. So,
yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we have Rachel Davis.
Hi, my name is Rachel Davis, and I am the Water Loss Control Programs Supervisor. Yeah, with the Municipal Water District of Orange County. And I can tell you all what that means later, but we are a water wholesaler and actually a water importer for Orange County. We sell water from the Sacramento Bay Delta and the Colorado River to all of your local water districts. So some of that water that you're getting out of the tap, I had a little hand in that. So, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Next, we have Morgan Zandinella.
Hi, my name is Morgan Zandinella, and I am a senior process engineer at Medtronic Neurovascular. Medtronic is a medical device company and with sites all over the world, but we also have a couple of sites here in Orange County. And the site that I'm at here in Irvine builds medical devices that doctors use to help treat stroke.
Awesome, thanks for joining us. And next we have Bob Mosey.
You're right. You're right. That mute is the hardest part. So, I'm president of Mosey's Production Machinist. We're a family-owned business, been around 45 years. We manufacture components that go into other people's equipment. So, as an example, Morgan here works for Medtronics. Medtronics happens to be one of our customers, but actually for Ireland division where they make ventilators. And of course, during COVID and stuff, we've been making lots of parts for ventilators. So we use all computerized equipment and software to program the machines to take raw materials and make them into finished parts.
Great, thank you for joining us. And before we get started, students, I did want to remind you, if you do want to ask additional questions throughout the live panel, Be sure to use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I will have that open. You can ask any questions directly to any of the panelists that we'll have, and I'll be sure to add them into our conversation. So let's get started. We'll start with Cynthia. Students want to know, did you take all advantages that were provided for you in high school?
I think so. So I loved ROP in high school. It was an easy period, number one. And secondly, I really got a lot out of it. I did the dental assisting ROP and then business. But I would highly encourage you to take advantage of any programs like that, because I learned people skills, resume writing, how to interact with people, how to interview. And still to this day, if I'm looking for a job, I have that original resume format that I use. So that was way back in the 90s.
That's great. I'm glad you mentioned ROP. Students, be sure to speak with your ROP coordinators. They did help you register for this event, so I'm sure they're intrigued to get you into those programs as well. Rachel Davis, what about you? Did you take all advantages while you were in high school?
Absolutely not. Took me a while to catch up there in high school. I had a lot of things going on at home and, in my personal life that really did not let me have my mind fully in the game. So I had to do a fair amount of catching up in community college, but I'm really glad that I had that opportunity. So I guess maybe if you blew it in high school, don't worry, you can catch up.
Great advice, great. And Morgan, how about yourself? Did you take all advantages while you were in high school?
Yeah, I think so. I think at least the ones that I was interested in. I know that there's a lot of opportunities, even more so now when I hear about programs that are available here in Orange County. I grew up in Nevada, so it's a little bit different. But I took advantage of classes that were offered that I was interested in. And then my high school also had a program for doing an unpaid internship for class credit as an elective. And so you would tell them what you were interested in, and they partnered with someone in the community that they would try to do something similar to what you're interested in. And that was really helpful to see careers that I was thinking about and get to go shadow them.
Awesome. And Bob, what about you? Did you take all advantages while you were in high school?
Probably not. However, I don't know that we had the opportunities back then that we do today for our high schoolers. Hopefully we're doing a better job of it than they were when I was in high school. But I was mainly focused on girls and fixing cars. So anything I could do to get out of school work and maybe go work in metal shop or something like that. So I was one of those kind of kids, but somehow or another I ended up owning a machine shop. So, I guess it all worked out.
That's great. So we actually did get a question submitted in, and I'll start with you, Cynthia. A student is asking, how did you balance, I guess, when you were applying for your first job ever, how did you balance between choosing a job and finding a job that actually pays well that you may not like?
Well, for your first job, I'm going to be honest, I think it's a little bit of trial and error. So my very first job was working for a company where we took staples out of documents so they could microfilm them. And that wasn't something that I thought I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but it was something that I knew after I did it, I didn't want to do for the rest of my life, something to put on my resume. I learned how to clock in, how to clock out, and I learned, I got some skills out of it. So just know your first job is probably not going to be what you're going to do forever, but you're going to take away things that are going to help you find your lifetime career.
Yeah, that was a great answer.
Yeah.
And so same question for you, Rachel. How did you balance between choosing a job and possibly a job that may pay well that you don't like?
So I'll go for my first job out of college. I graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's degree, and you're kind of told like, yeah, we're the cream of the crop. Like, we're going to go out there and and take over the world. I graduated in 2008. So there was a very large recession at that time. And I was doing a little bit of contract work on the side, and they had reached out to me. This was the Long Beach Water Department, reached out and said, we have an opening for a part-time, they call them non-career positions. So it's not doesn't give you a great sense of worth there. And it only paid $16 an hour, which when you've already got a degree, you're thinking you might have a little more earning potential than that. So it wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but I did feel lucky to have any kind of job at that point in our economy. And it turned out that I loved the work we were doing. So it led to bigger and better things later on.
Awesome. And so same question for you, Morgan. How did you balance choosing a job you like or choosing a job that pays well that you probably didn't like?
I think some really good advice that I got when I was trying to figure out what to study and what to do for a job after I graduated was to make sure that you choose a job that affords the way that you want to live. And so it'd be nice to say, well, you can just take any job and follow your passion. But if it doesn't pay enough to be able to sustain the way that you want to live, then it's something to consider. So the practicality, I guess. At the same time, not me personally, but I have a very close friend who took a job that paid very, very well, but was miserable. So yeah, he was making the big money, but because of his hours and how much he was working, he never got a chance to do anything other than work. And last year actually took a pay cut in order to have more time to spend with his family and do things like that were also important to him. So I think it's a balance of that. We have to consider what's practical, to be able to live. But on the other hand, don't sacrifice all of it because you still want to have a good quality of life.
Very good. And I can agree with that. Definitely finding a job that will kind of help the life you want to live. And so same question for you, Bob. How are you able to balance choosing a job that you like versus choosing a job that pays well that you may not like?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience. All through high school, then into the Air Force, and even after I went in the Air Force, my whole focus was on starting my own auto shop, my own auto repair facility, believe it or not. That was my passion, and quite frankly, it's still my passion. However, I found that by coming into the family business in the machine shop and making things, it still allowed me to work with my hands, still allowed me to be creative and problem solve. So I got a lot of the attributes I would have got working on cars, but I definitely made more money doing that than I would have working on cars. I still have cars as a hobby today. So now I can afford the cars I want.
That's great. So next question is for Cynthia. Some students want to know what is your everyday like in managing your work and balancing personal life?
Well, I think that's probably everybody's hardest thing, especially in these COVID times.
Yeah.
I'm a single mom, I've got a son, and I'm working 50 hours a week. So it is really a hard balance. But I think when you find a job that you love, that's your family too. So that makes it easy. I mean, I'm with my coworkers really more than I'm with my family, and we love each other. We get along, we help each other out. We have a saying, HBO, help a brother out, or HSO, help a sister out. And for the rest of your life, you're going to be trying to find that balance. And I don't know, you just kind of find a way to do it. Prioritize.
Great answer. So same question for you, Rachel, with what is it like managing your everyday work and then balancing your personal life?
I've been better at that sometimes than others. I think, especially earlier in my career, it was really just felt the need to perform and crank out as much work as possible. So I definitely, worked a fair amount of overtime. Back, I was an analyst for a long time. Now, I think I've gotten better at managing my time when I am at work, and probably wasting less time. So I try to stick to about 40 hours a week now, sometimes more successfully than others. But it's true, there's give and take. And I had to work a lot of weekends when I was just starting, and a lot of community events in the evenings. So you do sacrifice a little bit maybe at first, but I think it's really paid off for me now.
That's great. So same question for you, Morgan. What is it your everyday like with managing work and then balancing your personal life?
Yeah, if I could, I want to add on to what Rachel said, because I agree. I think early on, even if it's later in your career, but you switch jobs or switch companies, I think it's really important, at least for me in that first time period there, to put in that, extra effort where it's needed, because a lot of times there's more that needs to be learned, and you're still trying to get up to speed and being able to contribute. And I think when you build that reputation of, hey, I'm going to put in what's needed to be successful in this role, it helps you set yourself up for more flexibility in the future. So for example, I had worked at Medtronic for 2 years, and they reassigned me to a project that was going to require a lot of traveling, which sounds really exciting. And it can be. Earlier in my career, I did that. But at this point in my life, I really had difficulty being able to travel for, like 50% or more of my time. To be away from home wasn't going to work. And so because though I've had a reputation here of being able to work hard, when I talked to my boss, hey, this isn't going to work for me, they were able to be flexible with that so that I could travel less and be on a project that's here in Southern California instead. And I think that's really possible because of, putting in that work ahead of time, that they were able to help accommodate to give me that work-life balance that I was looking for.
Very good. And so same question for you, Bob. What is your everyday like with managing work and balancing your personal life?
My everyday is basically interacting with some of our customers and working with our leadership team as basically a mentor or coach. Don't do a lot of hands-on stuff anymore. Unfortunately, that's why I have my hobbies at home. And quite honestly, I look forward to, as much as I like the job and the business, I think it's really important at the end of the day to shut it off and turn on home. And when you get home, you're at home. I mean, sure, the business stuff is still going on in the background, but I'm really focused on my wife and our kids as they were growing up, and our friends in church and all that. And I encourage our employees to do the same thing. We have a lot of great people, and they want to do above and beyond, which I certainly appreciate. And I find them sometimes coming down here in the evenings or on the weekends and on their own, which is great. And I thank them for that. But I don't expect that. I actually encourage them to take vacations to balance out that time from work. We all need that break from work,
Yes.
regardless of the job.
Very good. And so the next question is going to Cynthia. In your career industry, what type of jobs are available for high school students right after graduating, if any?
Well, in automotive, there's a whole bunch of jobs, but I would say right out of high school or even in high school, many automotive shops offer internships. So you can reach out to us. It's COVID times, of course, or just reach out to local shops because we need youth in automotive. So we are happy to mentor. They're not always paid. And then there's also entry level things like, facility maintenance, and it may not be a fancy title, but you're going to get your hands dirty and you're going to learn about the industry. And one thing if you could take away from any of this is that it's okay to start at the bottom, because if you're going upstairs, you can't jump to the top step. You have to take one step at a time. So don't get discouraged starting at the bottom and working your way up, because you're going to be a better employee because you're going to know the business inside and out.
Very good. And so same question for Rachel. In your career industry, what type of jobs are available for high school students, if any?
High school is pretty limited, to be honest. I've only seen one case where high school students were invited to come work for a water district. We do tend to go for college level students, for internships. And there are especially some great local community colleges that have direct relationships with water districts already. So they can help with internship placement. But yeah, unfortunately, not too much on the high school level. Maybe some water industry, not with local government, but with more like environmental organizations. They're a little more willing to take on high school students.
Very good. And how about you, Morgan? In your career industry, any type of jobs available for high school students?
Yeah, so at Medtronic, we do have our manufacturing site located here as well. I would say that we don't particularly seek out high school students, but as far as like just direct applying, we do hire assemblers and technicians. But for like the engineering path, so like the team that I work for, it is college will bring in college university interns, and then also graduates for full-time positions.
And how about you, Bob, at Mosey? Any type of jobs available for high school students?
I'm just going to kind of round this out into manufacturing in general, but there's always something to do. And as Cynthia pointed out, starting at the bottom is not a bad thing. Even in a family business, I started out cleaning the toilets, mopping the floor, cleaning out the sumps in the machines before I ever ran any parts or turned any handles. So don't worry too much about that. Ask for the job, be willing to do whatever it takes to get in the door and start to just expose yourself to all the different careers. I mean, there's probably 20 careers just in our little business. So anywhere from administrative to purchasing to inspection to quality to machining to setup to programming, there's so many different ones. It's really hard to know exactly which career is going to float your boat when you get up there. So don't be afraid to go in there. Just get exposed to the environment and learn which direction you want to go. Lots of trade schools for our trades. It's not even necessary to go to college. It's still a good thing to have, but there's a lot of trade schools and apprenticeship programs that can take you from that high school student, part-time shop helper, up to journeyman machinist.
And so the next question for Cynthia, students want to know, what would you say is the hardest thing about leading in your position?
I think the hardest thing about leading is you like everyone. And when you're a leader, you have to give feedback, sometimes constructive feedback, and you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So it's kind of that balance of, I need to maybe tell somebody they did something wrong and do it in a way that empowers them instead of puts them down. And then I also have to tell myself it's okay to give them constructive feedback because it's going to make them a better person. I'm not always here to be your friend. I'm here to help you grow. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to be not so nice. So, and then if I could go back one question, kind of what everyone touched on, and I saw there was a question about retail. So maybe your career is the water district and they don't hire high school students, but they need people who are articulate, and people that talk and that can interact with people. So those retail jobs and everything while you're in high school and in college are great because they give you all those soft skills that you're going to need for any career that you go into. So don't feel like those jobs are demeaning or they're beneath you, because really you need those skills to succeed anywhere. So
that was a great answer. I started off in retail, didn't know I'd be an event planner, but here we are. So I'll also ask you, Rachel, what would you say is the hardest thing about leading in your current position?
So the water industry is very male dominated still. That can be challenging, I think, especially when I made the transition from analyst and what they kind of saw as like a number spreadsheet person to overseeing a program in operations. I really had to kind of prove that I knew what I was doing. And the only way I could do that was to go out there and get my hands dirty and do some of it. And I gained a lot of respect, I think, from staff just by getting out there. And that's just something that takes time. You just have to build respect and trust with your people. And, you know, I really appreciate the job that our crews do. And yeah, just appreciation for them has gotten me a long way. So.
Very good. And so same question for you, Morgan. What would you say is the hardest thing about leading in your current position?
I think one of the hardest things that my team faces on a regular basis is disagreeing with our other team members, but doing it in a way that's respectful. I think it kind of follows off of Cynthia's, how do you give, tough feedback? In this case, as our engineering team, we're dealing with, tough problems. How do we, we're trying to manufacture and design new things. And of course, things never go to plan. That's just standard. So when we come up against hurdles, there's a lot of ideas, but only so much time and only so much money and resources to pursue those ideas. So trying to disagree in a way that still maintains relationships and making sure to ask the right questions so that we're trying to make the most informed decision that we can. And keep the team unified, even if we're not doing necessarily what one or two people think we should be.
Yeah. Okay. And then so also for you, Bob, what would you say is the hardest thing about leading in your current position?
Leading, not pushing. I don't find command and direct leadership to be very productive. People typically don't want to work in that environment. So for me, it's about being interested in what the folks are doing, listening to their ideas and their creativity, allowing them to engage, making sure they understand the mission of the company and the why that we do things. And that's in my idea the way of leading. And some of the things that Cynthia said as well about that's probably one of the hardest things is to have to do like annual reviews or reviews in general and be able to critique my leadership team. And they all do such a wonderful job. It's hard for me to find anything even to critique them about. So that's kind of a hard part for me. So there you go.
Very good. And so we did get more questions submitted in. And so I'll kind of do a 2-in-1. A couple of students want to know from Cynthia first, how do you manage stress and having an overwhelming day on the job?
I think you have to have a hobby and have something that you're passionate about. Mine, well, obviously I have a child. So once you see their face, all the, shenanigans of the day melts away. But I also love volunteering. I'm in the Kiwanis Club of Huntington Beach. So we're a volunteer organization. And when I feel like when I give back to someone, you get it back 100 times over. So I just bury myself in that, and the stress seems to melt away. You just have to find your outlet.
Yeah.
So.
That was great. And so how about you, Rachel? How do you manage stress or an overwhelming day?
Yeah, Cynthia's got some good advice there. Pets, I have guinea pigs. But I would also I do try to keep it in perspective now. This is something I had to learn over time. But, one mistake, one wrong decision, one little failure, it's just, you get to do it all over again tomorrow. You get another chance. It's okay. So, trying to just keep it in perspective that, yes, something might be stressing you out in the moment, but that's all right. You get to try again tomorrow.
Very good. And how about you, Morgan? How do you handle an overwhelming day or stress on the job?
So I would agree with Cynthia and Rachel as well. Both of those things. Yeah, having, I think, a life outside of work definitely helps, and balancing that. And I think if I could add one thing on, I think the other thing that's really made a difference for me is having a team at work, that is in it, you're in it together, right? It's not probably just you that's having that stressful day. Like if you're stressed, there's chances are there's somebody, even if you don't know, that is probably feeling a similar pressure. And so I think working with our team members and knowing that we're all in this together and that you can ask for help and that that's okay, I think is also really important and helped me get through some of my more stressful things when I make a mistake or when I feel overwhelmed and don't know how to do something. That's why those other people are there, and it helps build that relationship. And then when they're having a stressful day, to be able to help them, it also makes you feel good. So I would say that makes a big difference for me as well.
Definitely agree, especially with the huge projects, always do. And so how about you, Bob? How do you handle overwhelming days or stressful work days?
Very deep breath. I've unfortunately and unfortunately, I live very close to home, or I live close to work. It's hard to tell which is home sometimes, but on the way home, I try to take all the things that happened during today, put them in mental boxes, close them, put them on the shelf, pay particular attention to things that I can't fix. If I can't fix them, I don't stress on them. I put them away. Things I can fix, I focus on those. And then going home to a hobby, whether it's a child or an old Corvette, getting out there in the garage and tinkering on my cars, definitely lets me unwind and stuff. Seemed like there was something else I wanted to say there, but I think I'll close there.
Okay. So next question, going to Cynthia. Are there any volunteer opportunities that high school students can focus on now that would help them get a job in your field?
Well, I think volunteer opportunities in general will help you get a job in any field. So most, like for example, automotive, we offer internships, which in a way is volunteering. But I had actually mentioned the Kiwanis Club. So you probably have Key Club and different things on your campus. And again, that's going to teach you the soft skills that you're going to need for any job, how to interact with people who have, different opinions than you, how to organize events, how to follow through on events, how to work the events, how to fundraise. It teaches you accounting. So really find something that you're passionate about, whether even if it's volunteering for animals, right? You're going to get those soft skills that are going to help you in any career.
Very good. And so how about you, Rachel? Are there any volunteer opportunities that could help students prepare for a job in your field?
Yeah, I think, so I've always worked for some type of local government, and we tend to go into those types of jobs because we care about our communities and ultimately we want to help our communities. So any volunteer experience is great. And just showing that you're engaged in the community, that you care. Specifically for me, I did have some experience with different environmental groups, and sometimes they need help pulling weeds in the local wetlands, or taking water samples on the beach. So there are some opportunities out there that don't need a whole lot of training, and you know, they may not be super glamorous, but if you're willing to get out there, I think they're fun and they can help you engage with our community.
Definitely. And so what about you, Morgan? Any volunteer opportunities that may help high school students prepare for a job in your field?
For engineering specifically, I don't know of a lot of like volunteering opportunities in that particular like field, but I would echo what Cynthia said in the sense that any volunteering experience that you have is going to build very valuable skills. And I think it also kind of goes back to that last question of building an interest and a passion and a hobby, whether that turns into a career or not. I think it's important just for being a well-rounded person and enjoying life to go pursue the things that you're passionate about and interested in doing.
Very good. And what about you, Bob? Any volunteer opportunities for high school students to prepare for a job in your field?
I thought about this a lot because saw the question, and I don't know that any of us have volunteers to come into our shops for anything. So I don't know whether it's volunteer or maybe what Cynthia said, other programs in the school that will help you towards that. So there's a lot of STEM programs in place, whether it's FIRST Robotics or National Robotic League or something like that, that's engineering driven, mathematical driven, mechanical driven. Those are the kind of things that can potentially start giving you some of that input if you decide to want to get into manufacturing as a career.
Very good. And so next question, going to Cynthia. Did you go to college? And if so, did you ever doubt what you were studying?
So I didn't, I guess this is my biggest confession. I really didn't go to college. I did go to a community college, got a certificate in dental assisting, which I did as a career for a while and loved it. But other than that, I really didn't. You know, I came from our family was struggling, and I've worked since I was 11, babysitting, doing everything. So that just was not in my cards. And you know, once I graduated, I started working full time, and I loved what I did and just kind of moved on up. So I would encourage you, whatever you're passionate about, keep studying it, whether it be at a university, a community college, online. Successful people never stop learning, and you don't always have to go to a university in order to do that. Just be passionate about your career and passionate about learning, and really take advantage of mentors. I think I owe that the whole mentor-mentee relationship a lot to my success. Whatever you're doing, find people who are successful, learn from them. If they don't want to train you, then they're the wrong person, right? Successful people want to help you grow. So that's my confession. No college.
And so same thing for you, Rachel. Did you go to college? And if so, did you ever doubt what you were studying?
Arguably too much college. Yeah, so I went to community college first for 2 years, and then I transferred to UCLA. I got a bachelor's degree in geography, environmental studies, and then I got a master's degree in geography, and then I went back to school and got another associate's degree in water utility science. So ultimately, yeah, I do love learning, and I do love, I like school, I guess. I don't know. But I worked throughout all of those. So did I doubt it? Yeah, I'll tell you when I doubted it. I got to a position where I felt like I had really plateaued. And I was just kind of pigeonholed as you're this operations analyst. And I didn't feel good about that. I went to our assistant general manager and said, you know, do I need to go back to school and get a degree in engineering? Because it just seems like engineers are the people who go really far in our organization. And how do I do that? And he said, no, you have skills, you have a good education. And it took me a while to figure out how to leverage my skills, I guess I would say, and to find the things that I could do well. And yeah, I had to stay the course, and maybe it did take me a little longer than if I was an engineer, but yeah, you got to trust in yourself.
Definitely. And so for you, Morgan, did you go to college? And if so, did you ever doubt yourself and what you were studying?
So I did go to college. I got my bachelor's degree in biomedical engineering at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. And I definitely doubted myself, especially because some classes are really hard. And but I never doubted going into biomedical engineering, I guess. I went into it because of a personal experience, being in the hospital and a device saving my life. And that's how I knew that I wanted to be able to do that for somebody else. And so that's what I think I held on to in those moments of doubt, taking thermodynamics and being up all night trying to pass my midterms, was thinking that someday I would get to pay it forward. And so I think if your why is really strong, it helps. I would say, though, that there was a time like my sophomore year in college where a lot of my classmates were switching majors to what they thought would be a more employable major. So, biomedical engineers switching to mechanical or to computer science or to computer engineering, thinking, oh, then I have more job opportunities than if I stay in biomedical, which may be true. Those are more general engineering majors. But I knew that I wanted to go into the biomedical space, so I stuck with it, and it paid off.
That's great advice. I can definitely agree with the stress when I was in statistics. But same question for you, Bob. Did you go to college? And if so, did you ever doubt what you were studying?
So Cynthia, you're not alone. I did not go to college. I chose to go in the Air Force right out of high school, mainly because I wanted to get on the career path as quickly as possible. And I felt like at that time that was going to get me where I wanted to go a lot quicker than going to college. Plus, I was never a great student anyway. But learning on the job, the practicalness of what I got to do in the Air Force helped me the most. So for me, that was my direction. I definitely think learning is awesome. I almost think sometimes would be better maybe to go get a job for a while, work out, and then figure out which college degree you want to go after. I don't know. I see a lot of kids sometimes building up a lot of student debt for a degree that doesn't really help them in a career, and that's unfortunate in my mind.
Very good. And so next question for Cynthia. What is the most rewarding thing about your job?
Well, being in human resources, I think the most rewarding thing is hiring someone and making them part of our team. If you've searched for a job, it's scary and you've got a family to feed. It's a big adjustment to go, maybe a place you're unhappy at, but at least I'm getting a steady paycheck to make that change. So it's really rewarding when we find someone that has the skills we need, and we just make them part of our family. So for sure that.
Very good. And how about you, Rachel? What is the most rewarding thing about your job?
I really like helping the community. So in the past, I used to oversee a program that paid folks to tear out their front lawns and put in California friendly plants. And, not everyone agrees with that, but the folks who did it, I really got to help them make these gardens that they loved. And then I got to give them a check at the end, which was fantastic. And, kind of maybe a little education along the way. And now I help utilities. So, a particular, like the city of Tustin will come and hire us to do leak detection work for them. So I'm helping them operate their system better, which in turn helps serve everyone water better and at a more affordable price. So I just like helping people.
And Morgan, what is the most rewarding thing about your job?
So I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but the reason I got into this field is the reason that I'm still here is because we make medical devices that save lives. And what I really like about that is I didn't have to go to medical school to do it, to be a doctor, right? A lot of schooling to do that. I'm not into the blood and guts thing at all. But it's really cool when like a patient comes in and says, your product, I used to work on heart valves, and patients would come in with the valve implanted and meet the people that literally sewed by hand their heart valve. And it's an incredible experience. And so valuable, because whether it's my family members or somebody else's, to be able to help someone overcome a sickness or an illness and live their daily life is very rewarding.
That's amazing. And how about you, Bob? What is the most rewarding thing about your job?
I love to give our people the freedom to experiment and try new things. So for me, it's when I walk around the shop or I walk through the office and somebody says, "Hey, come here, Bob, let me show you what I'm doing." And they show me this great thing that they're doing or making. And it's just, that's what fills my heart. So Morgan, I totally understand your passion about getting to see a product that you made come to life. And we do the same thing here. I mean, we do medical work, we do aerospace work, and getting to actually see what you do in its use out there in the world is really heartwarming. But getting to see people succeed, that for me is what floats my boat.
Well, as we're coming to a close, we're going to ask each of the panelists for some final advice. And so starting with you, Cynthia, what advice would you have for students? We do have middle school, high school students that are watching, and they just want to know, how can they prepare for their life after graduating high school?
So I think the two things to focus on are attitude and aptitude. So for any career that you choose, even for college, you have to have a positive attitude. You have to know where you're going, and you have to know that you're not there yet. So be humble. And then aptitude, so you just want to have the skills and you want to be trainable. And that's what all employees look for: positive attitude and the aptitude to learn. So take that. I think that's my best advice.
Very good. And from you, Rachel, what advice would you have for all the students watching on how to prepare for life after high school?
Bob touched on it a little bit when he said, be cautious of student debt. I mean, there's debt you can pay off if you're going to take on debt and graduate and be a doctor. That's fantastic, and you can pay it off. But for me, I went to community college. I lived at home when I did that, and I worked. And I got a grant that paid for my master's degree. So look for funding opportunities where you can get them. Try to minimize your debt. Something I've valued is stability in my career. Working for government is very stable. I'm really fortunate. When COVID hit, I didn't have to worry about losing my job. So even though I may never be a millionaire, working for, local government, stability is something. I think community college is a fantastic resource. I teach at community college now, and I teach in a program where folks aren't getting four-year degrees. They're getting a 7-class certificate. And that's letting them enter the job market a little bit faster and helping them earn more money. So that's a fantastic option also.
Great advice. And how about you, Morgan? How can students prepare for life after high school?
So I think there's 3 things that come to my mind. And the first is we talked a little bit about being passionate about something and exploring what you're passionate about. But sometimes we're not quite sure what we're passionate about, and that's totally okay. And my advice for that is take the pressure off. It's all right if you haven't found what it is yet, and follow what you're interested in or what you're curious about. Because you may find that what you're curious about or that interest may lead to a passion. Or it may not, but I think remaining curious and open to learning new things is definitely something, especially when you're young and still trying to figure it out. I think it's crazy that we ask 18, 17-year-olds to figure that out, because I think there's a lot of adults that still are trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And along with that is that if you do make a decision and you start a career, you go to school, feel free to make a change. Even if you've been doing it for 10 or 15 years, you can still make a change. And so I just always encourage you that if you start to feel stuck, know that there's other options, and to be flexible and give yourself permission to make that change. And then the third thing is be persistent. Even if you do really well in school, even if you graduate from a top university like Ivy League, right, you're still going to get rejection letters to jobs. It still happens. It happens to everyone. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot. But just remember, no matter how many no's you get, all it takes is one yes. So be persistent, keep trying, keep going for it, no matter how tough it is. Find someone to support you through those tough times, but you'll find something.
That was great. And from you, Bob, as well, how can students prepare for life after high school?
I don't know how I can add anything to what's been said. What some great answers. Not to be cliche, but find a career that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. So try to find something that you're interested in, that you're comfortable with. Don't be afraid to experiment. All the things that have been said already. I think one of my favorite stories is a guy goes up and interviews at a construction site and asks the first guy what he's doing. He says, I'm doing my job. He asks the second guy, he says, I'm laying bricks. And he asks the third guy, what are you doing? He says, I'm building a cathedral. So whatever job you look at, try to understand what that cathedral looks like and work on the cathedral. Don't just lay bricks.
And then one thing I want to say too is enjoy high school, because you're going to look back and think, man, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Take advantage of all the fun, make friends, enjoy where you are. You don't always have to focus on the future. Sometimes just, enjoy junior high, enjoy high school, make those friends. Don't be afraid to ask that girl out, that boy out, take a chance. Trust me, you're in the best time of your life. You have the rest of your life to work, so enjoy.
I can second that. Do not rush and enjoy as much of it as possible, even if it's virtual. I know that we were not able to touch all the questions that were submitted, but I do hope that all of the panelists that you've met throughout this series were truly beneficial to you, your future, and your plans and goals after high school. I do want to thank all of our panelists today for joining us. You were truly amazing, and your advice, I'm sure, benefit many students that are watching, even counselors and teachers, I hope. And I also want to send a friendly reminder. Students, again, remember tomorrow is the final day to submit all, and I mean all, workshops activities by 11 p.m. I'm sorry I couldn't get 11:59, but 11 p.m. is when they're all due. Remember, the top 50 students will have an opportunity to join Sean O'Keefe at the Career Launch Academy. And the top 10 students of that group will receive the prize package of a gift certificate, meeting with several mentors, and also going to the academy. And so finally, for what you've all been waiting for is the point code, right? So you can submit your goals. So be sure to enter your code into the community game within the VitaLink app. And thank you for joining us. Thank you, panelists. We hope to work with you in the future, and we'll see you again. Thank you. Students, be sure to screenshot this or write the code down if you can. I myself and my team will be going through all the submissions and we'll be highlighting to make sure that we do send that information into your instructors if they're watching. We'll be sure to have it, I want to say at least before next Thursday, that we can enjoy your holiday break with ease. The live panel will close in about 1 minute. Be sure to screenshot and enter your code into the VitaLink app. If you do have any questions or you still are in need of your point codes, remember to email me directly. It's Aurea, A-U-R-E-A, at VitaLink OC. Thank you for joining us. And remember, during the break, you can always network with other students or other mentors. You can always email the businesses that you were able to watch throughout the series, ask for those internships or volunteer opportunities, and by January, you'll have a new mentor. Thank you. Bye.